Television Man is crazy. From Murderland. To David. David. Eckhard. And Lisa. Oh, and to Needle and Rage. In Ohio and Indiana, authorities report that Bundy Award nominee, the I-80 road flare stalker, struck again. At 46 kills, it's possible that he might just bring home the Bundy. What do you think, Valerie?
Well, Chet, the road flare is definitely a contender this year, and since Jack Kavanaugh voluntarily removed himself from the Bundy runnings, it seems that Mr. Wright, the I-80 road flare, and Hacksaw Sally...
Nice to see a lady in the runnings, isn't it, Valerie?
Oh, definitely, Chet. If you ask me, it's high time.
The remote clicks.
The talking heads bantering sport talk fade into cathode hell, burning and writhing alongside frames too numerous to mention. Cass yawns her way up from the quilt, and stretches up as if grabbing for something on the ceiling. The falling quilt reveals round breasts the color of bread dough, and sharp russet nipples. Jeremy feels like rolling over and touching them, pinching them, kissing them, biting them, suckling on them just a bit. But Jeremy is trying to decide whether he believes she is a robot or not. He's seen inside her, tasted her, and it feels warm enough in there. Oh God, it feels warmer than anywhere to Jeremy, but it just might be some kind of plastics from the dimensions the Dark Ones come from. After all, she, like all the others, watches all the murders on the TV going down, places bets on her screams in the chat rooms now and then, jeers the boring ones, and maintains the brand loyalty that only a true junkie can have. She is entertained. In the middle of all the shit and the violence and the noise and the death, she is entertained. Sometimes she might be entertained by the irony, sometimes by the repugnant nature of what this country has become, sometimes by the chittering stupidity of the inane newscasters and the cacophonous blarings of the loud and pointless commercials. She is occasionally disgusted by how far this has gone, by how rape culture has been perverted from its purer forms and reduced to a pop culture cult. It used to be just people who really understood why people kill and the defiance and the intensity involved. It didn't used to be stupid teenagers who didn't even know the names Jack the Ripper or Albert DeSalvo, although there's still plenty who idolize those two. But still, so often she can't tear herself away from it. It makes Jeremy debate whether she is in fact one of the few intelligent people he has ever met, or if she is falling for the game too. Just falling in the pit they dig for people who are looking too close. He stops and thinks about the razors he keeps in the briefcase and about how there might just be wires in her. God, don't let there be wires. He thinks, God, don't let there be wires. Don't let there be the fiber optic cables that link up to the receivers for satellite images. Don't let there be neural uplinks to the Dark Ones. His breathing gets heavy, and there begins to be a burning feeling in his eyes. His head begins to throb violently, with a humming like a fork against a violin string. He cannot stop thinking about wires and cables and the mechanical whirring of the machines around him. Cass leans over and kisses him, and relief washes over Jeremy's feverish brain. Human, of course. Should have known. She is, after all, a brunette. The Dark Ones will never touch her. I love you, she says. Her face gets bright, and she looks at him as if he was the most interesting thing she had ever seen. She looks at him like a sunset. I love you, he replies. It is all that he feels, all he wants to say and no one think about it. He returns her kiss voraciously. It expands and moves around her mouth. The kiss, once small, has become a colossus. They roll over on top of each other. They writhe and shake. They coil around one another. As they begin to explode with power and intensity, Jeremy's eyes are full of astronomy. The movements of planets, and the blazing of bright new stars, shine in them. His perpetual motion, superpowered Swiss watch brain lets itself shut off. Lets itself return to its roots as meat and juices. Cass sort of sees somebody she was a few thousand years ago, back in Egypt or Mesopotamia or somewhere of the sort. She remembers being as she is at the moment, naked and exulting in the triumph of being, in the movements of everything. There is Jeremy, and there is Cass, and they are creation, crashing like waves and falling like torrents of rain. And then Jeremy's elbow hits the remote, and the channel changes. The room fills with venom oozing from the television. Jeremy can feel it. Jeremy smells the cloud of noxious hate and feels the flames of persecution lick at his feet. He feels more than a little sick.
Carl Edward Pratt, Kris Kringle, was found dead in his home today at the age of 57. Kringle was killed by a shot to the head from a .22 revolver. Kringle was known for the particularly inventive and grisly qualities of his murders, involving dismembering his victims and delivering body parts to their families. His killings numbered 14 to date. And while compared to others this might seem to be few, he will still be remembered for the viciously ingenious nature of those he committed. Pratt's identity was discovered only when the police found a kitchen full of human parts and wrapping paper. The media and the American people alike remained ignorant of the identity of the visionary that so ably captured their attention. Carl Edward Pratt, you will be missed. This is a true American tragedy. The news anchor, no longer a portrait of stony ersatz integrity, looks genuinely dismayed. He purses his lips in dissatisfaction, one of those rare moments during which he finds something truly sad. Jeremy is not altogether certain that these moments exist, and is skeptical that somebody like Pratt would have earned one. But this is the typical death knell of a minor celebrity. Thorough appreciation, a tragedy painted so eloquently, a career exaggerated, explosion of relevance onto the life and TV screen alike. Then suddenly the tragedy fades from the news anchor's face. The relevance oozes down a drain behind his desk. He straightens up, perks up, and turns to the woman at the desk beside him, the bleach blonde with the low-cut blouse and the wrong shade of lipstick. Jeremy wonders if she's related to the identical news anchor on Channel 8. Back to you, Eileen. Cass finally shuts off the TV and a frown spreads across her face. That's too bad, she says. I kinda liked his work, and it's occasionally nice to see them cover something besides Godless Jack or Hacksaw Sally. And sometimes he was just amazing. He really had his moments. Like when he sent the Haskell girl's parents her stomach and it was full of his cum. I mean, Jesus! Her tone changes. It's more upbeat, more excited. The statement her folks gave the press was completely priceless, totally vintage. Cass launches into a bad Texas drawl. We appeal to you, our fellow Americans, to help get safe zone regulations repealed and get monsters like the so-called Kris Kringle who did this to our daughter off the streets. Gina was the most precious gift God ever gave us. Well, we cannot have her back. New laws will allow many, many people to have their little girls come back home. Cass falls into utter paroxysms of laughter, and Jeremy heaves a very long sigh. He looks angry. Cass, they're human beings and they lost their daughter. It's not funny. Imagine how your parents would feel. What'd they be saying on their news if they lost you to some maniac? What would I be saying? Disgust creeps into Cass. She'll never get used to his moments of moralizing. They come so briefly and they seem so goddamn random. Maniac? Maniac? You're so backward sometimes, Jeremy. You know that? I can't believe you're using that word. Catholic school must have really gotten to you. Maniac. God, these people have problems, Jeremy. Real honest-to-God problems. But they overcome adversity and rise up to provide us with hours of quality entertainment every week. Talk like that makes you no better than guys like Tommy Simmons and the Christian Victims Front. You should go out and... Jeremy has heard this from Cass as much as Cass has heard Jeremy's tirades. Just as much as she didn't want him to open his mouth about it, he does not want to hear it from her. So Jeremy does the one thing that any right-thinking, red-blooded American male does in such a circumstance. He acquiesces. I'm sorry, Cass, you're right. I was just saying that it was kind of in poor taste, because, well, you know, they have a right to be angry. After all, they did lose someone they loved to this person. They might not have a right to scorn or be bigoted or persecute, since society has progressed beyond punishing people for being who they are. You're right, but by the same token, you can't really blame the victims. They're people too, aren't they? Much of the time, Jeremy does not quite believe this. In fact, much of the time, Jeremy does not believe this at all. As in this day and age, real human beings seem to Jeremy to be few and far between. And it is hard to fully process a concern for the rights of victims when one is in fact killing them. Jeremy is taking note of this, but still tires of such behavior in others. Sometimes, Jeremy, you're just too nice. It's a mean world. She kisses him once more. It is a little less so. He grumbles angrily in his mind at how they could possibly devote a whole news report to sheer trash like Pratt. No real reputation, no ideas that could benefit humanity, no redeeming social graces. Even as a source of entertainment, he could often be pretty mediocre. TV is really puzzling to Jeremy sometimes. As Jeremy often does, he wonders exactly what it is that makes him not a monster.
This is more of a logical exercise than a line of deep moral questioning. In fact, he very quickly comes up with a variety of highly satisfying replies to this question. He remembers, first of all, that he is above guilt. It is something to be banished from his mind. He is above guilt and beyond evil actions. Jeremy Jenkins, it turns out, is far too relevant to deal in murky moral absolutes. Jeremy does the right thing. He stops and savors the quiet produced by all this squealing, mewling, nasty, dark ones that has kept from emerging and kept from spreading the seeds of ignorance and hate. Only this, and Cass, bring him the exquisite requisite peace and time to clear his head, and allow him to enjoy the knowledge that thanks to Jeremy Jenkins, paladin and patriot, the world is safe. He smiles down on Cass and means it. So seldom does he mean it. So often is the smile a tool and a sidearm. Cass has fallen asleep, which is a shame, because he considers letting her know that were he to divulge his actions, he would be a media sensation, and that whether he does or not, he is a rebel genius and the greatest killer since the Black Death. He's not often proud of it, but she might very well be. He thinks about just how adoring and fawning she would be if she knew about his work, but realizes that he needs to remain anonymous, that TV and such things don't really become him much. He considers slicing her open and checking for wires, but instead he delicately and subtly lets his fingers slip into her. He feels the chills and excitement of her not seeing or knowing about all kinds of manipulations and maneuvers. No TV for him. I'm not a superstar, he tells himself. I'm a Superman.